Hey everyone, it's Jasmine. It's day 3 of Crypto Sports Week. I'm so glad that you've joined us this morning to talk through a really important strategic decision if you plan to either purchase or set up an NFT, which is what platform to choose. Obviously, in the past few months, there's been a proliferation of platforms, and personally, one of the first things that I did was call Lady Pheonix. I think this was maybe November, December. And fast forward, she's co-created Crypto Sports Week and is here to basically talk through, all of the things you'd want to think about before you made the leap into either minting on an NFT platform or even just as you're learning and on-ramping into what NFTs are. So kind of goes without an introduction, but Lady Pheonix is what I like to call the matriarch of NFTs, particularly on Clubhouse, where she's been an extremely kind of patient and strong voice around education, as so many of us have kind of come into the space of digital and crypto art where she's been for many years. So Lady Pheonix, thanks for taking the time, and we look forward to you sharing what you know about platforms, knowing as soon as we publish, there's going to be something new, but at least this is a moment in time for the Crypto Sports Week audience. Thank you.
Totally. Hey, Jasmine, I like that we both got the message to wear black hoodies.
Yes.
Alrighty, so choosing a platform. I'm going to share my screen here. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all. Yeah, can't believe it's day 3 of Crypto Sports Week. It's really nuts. We've had a great reception. Jasmine, you've been doing a fabulous job of hosting. I'm excited that, because when you think about the sports, there aren't too many platforms in the space. And so Round 21 really is one of one in the space. And so that's what's super exciting about partnering with you for Crypto Sports Week. I'm trying to share my screen, but for some reason it's telling me I can't share my screen.
So, I can help out. Where should we go?
Would you mind bringing up Zora.co?
Yeah.
We'll work our way backwards from Zora.
Okay.
Sweet. So starting with Zora. What I love about Zora is that Zora is a zero commissions platform. And what does that mean? And why is that important? So for me personally, when I'm choosing a platform, I like to think about what's in it for me and what's in it for the collector, but also what's in it for the platform. And nine times out of 10 with these platforms, the only thing that's in it for them is you've made really cool art and you help them to look good. Okay, so then what's in it for you? What's in it for you should be, what are the gas fees at the time of minting, right? Some of the platforms are set up in such a way where gas fees are really low, and we'll get into that. And then commission-wise. Most platforms take between 15 and 20% commission. Zora takes 0% commission. So that means that everything that is generated, all the money generated from the sale goes straight to you, the artist. I love that. Why do I love that? Well, for a couple of reasons. One is that the future of this space is personal chain, meaning that in the very near future, you won't need a platform to drop anything, right? You can drop on your own, under your own name, under your own .com, .io, .co, and straight to your fans, your collectors, your appreciators. I love that so much because typically in the art world, the Achilles heel of many artists has often been, I'm not going to say the galleries, but a system in place that includes galleries that are essentially gatekeepers, where the onus is really on them to help you make sales. And now with NFTs and blockchain and the internet, you essentially don't need a whole, army of people to help you make that decision. It's straight to customer, which I love, or straight to collector. And if you want to put your stuff up in space, it's straight to metaverse, right? You don't actually need anybody to do anything. So I love Zora because they're a protocol as well as a marketplace. They understand that the future of the space is personal chain, so they've made it possible for you to just go on and share your stuff. Is it highly curated? No, but they did announce just yesterday that they've come out with a curator's market. I'm seeing a lot of really cool cards, such as these from sports players. This is Sue Bird's card. Sue Bird is the Jordan of women's basketball. And it's great that you have a Sue Bird on there with a Megan Rapinoe, on there with, John Doe, who just got started, or Jane Doe, who just got started in the space and is looking for a good home to put their stuff. And there isn't a bunch of risk. And I love that. And because, once again, it's a no commissions platform, that 20% or 15% that you would normally give away to other platforms, you can actually keep that for yourself and consider that, the commission on gas fees, if gas fees are really high at that time.
Lady Pheonix, can I ask a question about that? So you've mentioned gas fees a few times. Can you describe what a gas fee is and why it's relevant to choosing a platform?
Definitely. That's a really good question. So think of the gas fee essentially as a transaction fee. It's the cost of doing business, right? So when you go to your bank, to the ATM, you have a transaction fee for getting money out. That transaction fee is $2.50 all the way up to $5. Now that's really expensive for a basic ATM fees. Gas fees can be, kind of the same way. And the reason why they call it gas is because there's someone else validating that transaction. You're trying to help that transaction come through. There's somebody else who's going to validate for you. That person who's helping to validate that transaction must also be compensated. That gas fee goes towards their compensation for validating what you're trying to do on the blockchain. Basically, they verify and say, yes, this transaction is okay, committed to the blockchain essentially.
And is the fee always paid by the creator, or sometimes the fee is paid by the buyer?
That depends on the platform, which again, why it's really important to make sure that the platform partner you choose also chooses you through their values and the way that they set up their platform. I started with Zora because I feel, while they're not, quote, a perfect platform, there's no perfect platform that exists other than you yourself being personal chain. I feel that they've thought through some of the basic things that artists want and need, right? Such as zero commission, such as their new auction platform format, such as being able to choose your own equity, right? So when the resale royalty or equity is what you would receive when somebody decides to resell your work. If they resell your work in the Zora platform, then the royalty is guaranteed from Zora, which I love. In a lot of the other platforms, if they take your work and sell it in another marketplace, or if they sell it privately, it's not guaranteed. So just be aware of that. Make sure that the collector that chooses your work is somebody that's also choosing you, meaning that they respect the fact that you want and expect a resale royalty for your work. They're not going to be somebody who's going to decide to sell your work secretly or take it to another space and then not tell you about it. So that's Zora.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. How do you normally choose a platform, Jasmine?
So actually, Primer day one, I shared one of Alan's spreadsheets that represents all of the considerations you have to choose from or consider, whether it's lazy minting, whether or not you're paying the fee as you mint it or when it's sold, whether or not you can have a branded experience, as Round 21 is a brand, and we believe we do have a point of view around sports and art, whether it's fiat currency, like currency that we're used to, dollars, credit cards, or if it's more endemic to cryptocurrency, and Zora is endemic to blockchain, and cryptocurrency. Whether it's IPFS, there are so many characteristics, whether from an engineering perspective, from a brand perspective, from an economics perspective, that all go into, I think, every drop Round 21 is going to do. We're going to look at the characteristics at the time of that drop and make a decision versus centralizing into one right now, because every drop may have different audiences or communities or need for branded payment upfront, open edition or one of one. Also, that like the structure of the launch, is it an auction? Is it something that should be more time-based? Those are all the things that we've considered so far.
Mm-hmm. And do you have that sheet?
Yes, I do.
I think that's probably best to do it while we're having this discussion.
Yeah. Here we go. Okay, hold on one second.
And what is the connection, in case people missed day one? What was the connection to showing the sheet and on day one?
Great question. So we used day one to talk through the NFT ecosystem overall and how it kind of has intersected the sports community and culture. And we really wanted to be sure that we grounded people in what we believe is currently available as this playground kind of manifests. We used case studies of how the Trevor Lawrence drop was on Bitsky and how, OpenSea was where the Golden State Warriors minted, so that people understood that really right now there isn't one way of doing things, that it's about educating yourself and having conversations that guide your decisions. And so this was the breakdown that we used, and we felt like, what I said was, as soon as this is published, it's a little outdated, but it gave people a sense of the considerations before going into any platform. And this was as far as we got. We didn't go into each platform.
I think this is actually quite a cool list. And yeah, you're right. As soon as you publish these things, it's a little bit out of date. For example, or not out of date, just maybe need a bit of upgrading. I believe that OpenSea is fully Polygon now, whereas before they weren't. And so when you go on, you can mint something for pennies on the dollar, which is exciting, right? And they also take most coins now, which is also exciting. One of the few that take the coins. So if you're like, well, listen, I'm not going to go through this entire list and pick out stuff, right? So just kind of bottom line it for me, Lady Pheonix. Like, what's going on? I got to get to work, right? I'm like waiting on my kid to finish his cereal, or like I'm just waiting on the bus trying to catch this real quick. So here's the thing. Right now in the space, if you want to do split payments, if you're like a collaborator and it's you and somebody else, you should use known origin, because known origin will allow you to split payments. While they, don't have like zero commissions and all of that, they do have split payments, which is amazing. There aren't a lot of, they're the only platform in the space that allows split payments between creators right now for the smart contract. Awesome, right? And they allow, 50-50. If you're working with a nonprofit or a charity, you can do 99 to them, 1% to you. They've really considered that. Also, the founder, David, he's very accessible. I know people don't often think about that when choosing a platform, but for me, in my business, I think about how accessible the founders or decision makers are. And a lot of these platforms, the founders or decision makers are not accessible. They say that they are, you try to reach out to them, and then no one hits you back. Or they tell you what they can't do for you. I found that David at Known Origin, just like Jacob at Zora, what they do is they tell you what they can do for you. And sometimes that might be limited, especially if you want the full buffet experience, but at least they're a partner by which you can grow with. Something else to consider. Let's talk about Nifty Gateway, because Nifty Gateway is very popular. They're doing, big things in the space. They've helped to, for all intents and purposes, they've helped to really popularize NFTs through their monstrous drops. A couple of things to consider with Nifty Gateway. Number one, you don't mint on your own contract. You mint on a Nifty Gateway contract. Why is that important? It's important because when people go, shout out to Nest Graphics, we love him. And super excited about his drop. Wish he was doing it in a different way where he could mint on his own contract, but it's all good. Like his stuff, go and buy it up, run up those sales. Nest Graphics is totally awesome. Let's go back to in the club with Drew Kataoka.
Okay, where was that?
Yeah, scroll
scroll down.
The yellow one.
Got it.
All the way down. Yeah, that. Let's click on that. Drew for the Catalyst Fund, In the Club by Drew Kataoka for the Catalyst Fund for Justice. Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, so Drew is a wonderful artist who often, it's a bummer that this is the thing, all love for Nifty Gateway, but man, it's like, why don't the artists mint on their own contracts? Like for Provenance, when they go back and pull up these NFTs, it's not going to have your name on it. It's going to have Nifty Gateway's name on it. That's the only thing that
let's play that out. So you're saying that this piece by Micah Johnson if Round 21 decided to sell it somehow on OpenSea, that Maietta may not be able to be listed for that passive revenue in perpetuity?
No, Maica's
No.
going to be listed, but so will Nifty Gateway. That 10%, that 10% resale royalty will be split 5 to Nifty, 5 to Maica. I'm talking about the essential provenance of the piece, though.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't have your name on it. It has Nifty Gateway's name on it because you mentioned under a Nifty Gateway contract.
Got it.
Right? So it's very Suge Knight, 1990s Death Row, right? Where it's the record company that owns the asset and you, by proxy, have ownership, right? But you don't have pure sovereignty over your work because you have to share the ownership of that work with people who actually did not create the work, i.e. the platform, right? So again, all love to them. It's just not, in alignment with where I see the future of the space going or with what I know that artists want. All artists want sovereignty, right? They want to own their practice and own their own economy without having to negotiate that with other people. And so, when the artist dies, their estate now has to include the platform, right, in any type of negotiation of assets to the heirs, right? So Jasmine, if your children say you're making artwork, you use Maica, so let's just use him. Maica has children. At the time of Maica's death, Maica's estate Maica's lawyers have to call up Nifty Gateway and say, hey, Maica has passed. We need to talk about all of, the digital assets that are in connection with your platform regarding Maica. You have in perpetuity, you're in a contract in perpetuity with Maica where you receive 5% of all proceeds or sales from these works. And now you're not only talking to the family, like the actual children about that, now you have to actually talk to the owners of a platform about that. When they did the drop one time and did zero marketing for the drop, they did nothing except host it. I don't know if that's worth 5% over the course of my entire life.
Yeah.
Actually, when I say I don't know, I'm being facetious. I really know it's not worth it. So
I will say there are a lot of parallels to what you're describing for athletes, right? Athletes increasingly want to have control over their own destiny. I mean, the entire name, image, and likeness rules within the NCAA are literally about these athletes that generate millions of dollars in ticket sales to be compensated in a way for that feels fair. And so what you're speaking to in terms of artist control, provenance, and custody over their work and the revenue is very transferable to how athletes are also trying to build their lifetime and generational wealth. So it's a good point for people to just keep in mind as one of those characteristics for the platforms. And that may not often get seen because it's overshadowed by the glitz and glam of the power of the moment without thinking about the, realities of the legacy.
That's right. And so, oftentimes people want to have very technical conversations about the space when they haven't had a realistic conversation with themselves about their own practice and what they want, right? What their goals are. And so I always tell folks, whether they're very famous or just, Joe Schmo from the internet, don't put, it's great to consider these platforms, right? Like that should be the second consideration after you've considered what you want from your practice, right. What you want from the NFT experience. Why are you dropping the NFT? Like, what is the point? Just to make money? You can do that a number of ways. You don't have to drop an NFT to make money because, much like you pointed out, Jasmine, the implications of this one act, right? The implications of it have lifetime ripple effects, right? Yeah. So it can affect your progeny. It can affect your legacy 100 years later. It isn't just about, dropping an NFT. If done improperly, the person, the athlete, the actor, the artist may be, I don't want to say ensnaring, but maybe creating a situation of less freedom, right? They may be complicating their legacies by doing this and not even knowing it. Because what if this is the most successful financially viable thing they've ever done, right? Where now from this one activity, they have, $20 million from this one activity. Whereas before, the other things that they've done with their name and likeness have been $20 million after 10 years' time or 5 years' time. Whereas with this one drop, they've made $20 million. Yeah. And now that drop is going to be, maybe changing hands and growing in value. But every time that thing changes hands and grow in value, because the artist or the athlete didn't really know what they were doing, they're going to get less and less and less value from the one drop.
And the music industry has shown that this does happen, right? You hear about people's estates now being, famously certain publishers own the rights to other musicians. And you're like, how did that happen? It's because of the decisions that were made early in the career. We're getting some comments, dropless minting. Thanks for the chart. Where should we go to next?
I think that if no one has any questions, I'd like to go back to your chart and talk about key detail when choosing a platform.
Let's do it.
I think, again, I want to reiterate, before you choose a platform, you need to decide to choose yourself. You decide to choose yourself by understanding what your goals are. And people are probably hearing that being like, yeah, duh, Lady Pheonix, I've chosen myself. That's why I'm at Crypto Sports Week. I know what I want to do. But do you really think about your drop, right? Your NFT 25 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now? How do you want that NFT to be performing? What do you want people to think of you or know of you based on this asset being out in the world? And how do you want this asset to serve your legacy and your family? Those are really, key things. Any thoughts on Tezos-based marketplaces? Well,
it's interesting that you bring this up, because I think conventionally people haven't had to think about 100 years from now, because there's a kind of idea that, things will change by then. The reality of blockchain is that there's a certain level of commitment and longevity that comes from this technology asset class that may not be as fair weather as some of the other technologies that have had impacts on generations before. And so I think that's where you're cautioning people to just really think about, 7, 8, 10 steps ahead in the spirit of, continuing to evolve as creatives, as we all will as well.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up, because the reality is we are moving towards a persistent digital reality, right? And so in that, we now have to be thinking in terms of forever.
Yeah.
And so things that now come out and are committed to blockchain, are a part of the internet, are things that are around forever. They're not just some temporary, moment in time. No, this is a permanent moment in time, a time etched in rock, not just drawn upon sand, that'll wash away at the evening when the tide comes in. There is no washing away a lot of what's happening, and why the blockchain is both an opportunity because of its, historical record, or its ability to be historical record, but also it can be detrimental for those who haven't fully thought through how they want to be represented on the blockchain. And not to say you have to overthink it. If you don't like the color of the artwork, you stop, don't do it. It's not that. It's in your rights. NFTs, the great opportunity with NFTs, present you with rights. And if the platform you choose don't align with the rights that you want for yourself and into the future, then don't drop there. The reason why I started with Zora is because no commissions is the future, right? People who help you make the drop, people who help you produce the drop, artists who help you on the artwork, definitely pay them. But a platform who essentially does nothing but host you and allows for payment transactions to happen, you don't need to be paying them 20%, especially if you're not even minting on your own name and they technically own that asset because it's under their name. And all they've done with you is split the secondary fee, where they get 5 and you get 5.
Can I ask you a question? Because there might be a sense of, I didn't know that my contract would have Nifty listed as well. How does somebody like you, who's at the center of kind of this ecosystem and, spends a lot more time disproportionately focused on the rights of the artists, how does one go and seek out some of those smart and sales contract terms where they can assess for themselves if right now it's the right thing to do or not? Is it?
It's never the right thing to do. It's never the right thing to drop unless you're desperate and need money, right? Then it's the right thing to do. It's never the right thing to do to give up your sovereignty. So I just want to make that like super clear. It's never the right thing to have somebody own your work unless you're going into it with full consciousness that this is a work for hire. Then it's like working with any other brand, it's like working with any other brand. You know, you're stepping into this with the full consciousness that this work belongs to them and this work is being created to benefit them, both now in the short term, but also in the long term, because ultimately you're only getting that money up front on the primary and then 5%. So not even your full royalty of 10%, but you're only getting 5%. So you're still splitting it with them on the secondary in perpetuity. Again, I respect those guys over there. I don't agree with the way they're doing business. I think it's detrimental to all creators.
Yeah, but so if I was to go to Async or Foundation, what questions should I ask or what documentation should I be looking for just to make sure there's like I have a sense of understanding of how their contracts work? Is there any, it might just be having conversations with other people or really doing the due diligence around there.
You should definitely just have a conversation with those who own the platform or those who are representatives of the platform itself. Like every single platform has a community person. The community person, it's their job to make it very clear to you what's happening. For example, there's someone who brought up Tezos. The Tezos HNC. There's a lot of people, a lot of wonderful artists that love HNC. Okay, HNC is wonderful. However, there's a debate out. This is not Lady Pheonix saying this. Lady Pheonix has no dog in the race. Okay, this is the word in the community. There's some doubt as to if Tezos is going to be around, right? If that blockchain is going to be around. There's some doubt if collectors are really into it or not. And there's a belief that it's maybe just a fad right now. I want to be very clear. Lady Pheonix is not saying this. This is the discussion in the marketplace right now. I think that that's something you ought to consider. You ought to consider if this is a stable blockchain that will be around. It's great that HNC has the eco policy that they have. Pretty soon, everyone will have the same eco policy. So you have to think beyond momentary uniqueness to lifetime uniqueness, right? So Lady Pheonix is not saying Tezos Marketplace doesn't have value. People are saying it. So you have to investigate for yourself if it's true or not, right? And maybe you, much like with Nifty Gateway, maybe you don't mind, right? Maybe right now it's all about the environment and that's all you care about. Good on you. Okay, so another something you should think about is how, again, these NFTs are going to perform in the future. The future of NFTs are programmability, full stop, okay? One great platform that specializes in programmability and does a bang-up job is Async. Shout out to Conlon, who's the founder of Async. Love that platform, think they're doing a really great job over there, and would suggest that everybody go and check out what they're doing with programmability. It is the future of the space, hands down. Just putting out an NFT that does nothing is dead. So you want to consider the performance of the actual NFT, specifically through the instruction of the smart contract. But in terms of what I think about Tezos-based marketplace, I think it's great. Agency is doing a real bang-up job. People seem super satisfied with it. I have a lot of friends and colleagues that have dropped on HNC. I just want to understand if HNC is actually fully considering the future of a Tezos blockchain. And so that's something you'd have to join their Discord, right? Get in touch with them on Telegram. Most everyone's on Discord and Twitter, and really follow along and see for yourself. If you're experimenting and just want to see what's going on in the space, go to Zora. Again, you can experiment for basically nothing and go to OpenSea. OpenSea especially has the lowest fees of anybody in the space, except the one fee, I think it's like a 3% commission on the primary, and then they have lazy minting, but now that they have Polygon, which is an layer 2 solution for Ethereum, it's like pennies on the dollar. So if you want to just experiment to see what's going on, but also have a good time, go to OpenSea. I would say then go to Zora. Then I would look at a platform that's both fiat and crypto, a great platform that kind of walks the middle and also considers all of the artists is Maker's Place. They're a fiat on ramp. They're great. It's super easy to get started. All you need is your email, right? To get started, you don't need a wallet and all that jazz. They'll also pay you out to PayPal, which is awesome. I think that if you go to a lot of these private platforms, you should ask them to pay you out in crypto. If you go to these platforms and they don't pay you out in crypto, for me, that's a little bit of a flag to be in the crypto space, but not want to pay artists out in crypto. It's like, why would you want to pay artists out in USD unless the artist has requested that? I think that I like what Super Rare does with their curation. They've got Alessio over there. Shout out to Uncle Alessio. They've got Alessio over there as the chief curator. Thank God. He has superb taste in art. He has great relationships with artists, and he is a stickler for quality. He's supported by Zach in marketing and On in the editorial. I really love OpenSea because they do a great job with the editorial. So shout out to that whole team over there. The founders are definitely accessible. They're quite busy right now, so don't get your feelings hurt if they don't get back to you straight away. Whoa, look at OpenSea with the new interface.
I know, it looks clean.
Yeah, wow. OpenSea, way to step it up, guys. So that's super rare. I love that they really focus on doing one of one, so it's great for the environment as well. I did hear at one time, Super Rare, what they're doing is not good for the environment. Listen, they're literally minting one NFT. Please, if you hear things, really investigate for yourself. They're minting one NFT at a time. It's fine for the environment. You got to think about, folks who are minting thousands of NFTs at one time. That can be compromising for the environment, but you know what else is compromising for the environment? Racism, hate, Coca-Cola, So we gotta consider all of these kind of platform discussions around the environment with a sense of sobriety, and we have to understand that someone's minting one NFT, it's not causing 100 trees to be burned down. I want us to, and I say this with love and camaraderie, I want us to be realistic when we deal with these discussions because they can negatively impact one another in the space. We are moving as a community from proof of work to proof of stake, which is awesome. There are people such as H&C who've made that their goal. So once again, if you care about the environment, go to H&C. Also, the fees are a lot lower at H&C. If you care about royalties, and you care about keeping as much of your money as possible, you're sort of launching on a slim budget, go to Zora. They have a great community there. You can have a curated platform there to launch your own, say you're, Bake Sale Betty's NFTs, you can go there. Say you're Hoop Bus NFTs, you can go there and have a Hoop Bus curated page and drop all of your NFTs. So if you want the absolute dirt cheap lowest minting fees, go straight over to OpenSea, where it's really cheap to mint. They've had some incredible drops on there from people like Gronk. They're a little bit hard to get in touch with. I'm not gonna be romantic about how easy it is to be in touch with them. I will say they have a very friendly team, and once you've been annoying about being in touch, they will eventually get back. And it's okay to be annoying and persistent in this space. I should say persistent, not annoying, but it's okay to be persistent.
I want to reinforce that though, because I think people coming in new, I see a lot of comments usually around, oh, I'm just getting started. And so there's a sense of trepidation, but Mikhail at Zora has been wonderful to me.
Awesome.
The OpenSea, Alex and team have been wonderful.
Awesome.
And then yesterday I reached out cold to Bitsky and luckily 6 hours later was on the phone with their COO and head of community. And so I do think there is a sense of like, oh, these are big platforms, but these are people like us who are entering a new space who want to be successful. And so if you have questions, you're right, just ask. And if you don't get the question answered from the core team, the Discords they're bananas. Like they have people, running community 24/7, and we'll get back to you. So I think it's a good point. We're getting a little up on time, so I don't know if there's I was going to ask one more question that's more strategic.
Sure.
Which is just like grounding again for people coming very, very new to the entire language of blockchain and cryptocurrency and then NFTs, which is, why is Ethereum, and if you don't know the answer, it's fine, but I do think people are asking a lot of questions. Why is Ethereum kind of seen as the first cryptocurrency that, people associate with digital art, and then now with others coming on, kind of the media zeitgeist, kind of generally, how is that changing? And then you hear flow, just like curious if you have any thoughts on, why some of these words, Ethereum, flow, wax, Tezos, are being thrown around, just to orient people on the additional homework they need to do around this space.
Sure. So is your question, who are these companies? How do they function? Is that kind of more or less your question?
Not even how they function, but just generally, like, what are these words and what do they mean, and why are they different a little bit, but just to give people enough breadcrumbs to then go and investigate further.
Yeah, so what I would do is probably associate the words with their function. So Wax is a part of the EOS network, and the EOS blockchain. They're pretty popular. They're wildly popular. You can mint pretty much for free with them. It's really, really low. In their function, and I wish Dylan could jump in because he's a part of the EOS mafia. But I would say that EOS makes it easy for people to mint. They have a lot of great functionality. Wax is that platform that's kind of taken the lead, right, on EOS. I would say with Tezos has come along and been great for the environment, right? That's their kind of claim to fame. Ethereum, I mean, back in the days, it was just, Bitcoin and Ethereum really in terms of like popularity and what people knew and understood. So a lot of folks don't know that very early on, people were minting NFTs to Bitcoin. And folks will say, oh, that's impossible. It can't be done. No, they were doing it. So, so don't say it can't be done. Just figure out how they were doing it and why. It's extremely expensive, right? So it's totally cost prohibitive, but it was being done, right? And so I think when Ethereum came along and became more viable, it was like, oh, this is cheaper, right? We can do this a lot cheaper. And now actually having NFTs backed, being able to secure the ownership of digital objects on the blockchain with Ethereum is the most viable crypto out there, and it's also the crypto that has the most support. Like if you look at a lot of these VC firms, right? You look at what's in their portfolio. The majority of those companies, from a kind of commercial standpoint, they're all Ethereum-based companies. So I think that it's a function of like who's in the space and what they believe in, and have the largest like pool. Like when you get a guy like Gary Vee and Mark Cuban to be in NFTs, and the blockchains by which they are committing work is Ethereum, people just feel like that's all there is. But there's Cardano, right? I'm in talks with people about the Cardano blockchain and what's possible there. Certainly there's Tezos. Certainly there's EOS, which is Wax. There's also, people are trying to make a comeback for Bitcoin, so it'll be super interesting to see what happens with Bitcoin and NFTs. We've already discussed Ethereum. There's all of the layers.
With sports, like trying to anchor around, yeah.
Yeah, so there's Flow trying to anchor with sports, but I think even with Flow, aren't they Ethereum-based?
I mean, technically.
Yeah, so even though they're a branded blockchain, they're still Ethereum-based, right? So there's a lot of branded blockchains like Flow, but ultimately, when you look under the hood, it's Ethereum, right? So Tezos is Tezos, Flow is Ethereum, Wax is EOS, and those like Cardano is Cardano. So the guy who was involved in Cardano came out of Ethereum. So People's backstories are super interesting. What I would say is, once again, don't take Lady Fee's or Jasmine's kind of like word on this. Cool, listen, we're in dialogue. This is all this is. I've got my coffee here. It's over there, but I got my coffee. We're in dialogue. We're a bunch of friends sitting around having this conversation. I have a piece of the puzzle where my knowledge and my view is a little bit more intense. It's 100x just based on where I am. And Jasmine, specifically around sport and creativity for this NFT space, has her own 100x like microscopic view because that's her specialty. You have yours too. And be in conversation with others that have theirs and take each little piece of the conversation and braid it together for your life and the use for your personal market. I'm all about sovereignty and community. So the conversations that I'm having are specifically around sovereignty and community and looking for the platforms, projects, and people who can add more sovereignty to the lives of creatives. That's what I'm all about. I don't have all the answers. Happy to always be in dialogue with you around that. Me personally, I would avoid all private blockchains or centralized platforms. And if Jasmine, if you want to pull up that list one more time so people can have a look at what a centralized platform is. I think that as much as possible, try to be decentralized. Someone asked me recently about Palm.io. Oh, Palm is so cool. You're right, Palm is so cool, but they're centralized. So that means that when you commit an NFT to their platform, they own that NFT. You don't own it. Also, it's 8:45, so we will wrap up, but this is a pro tip. If when you're pinning things to IPFS, you haven't actually pinned it, that means that after a certain amount of time, those things will drop off from IPFS and be garbage collected. That's the literal term. So any NFT that's not pinned to IPFS is considered garbage by definition of IPFS. So, and to give you an idea of how like massive that is, the majority of NFTs are not pinned. So, and once it's been garbage collected, you cannot get it back. So another thing that you want to ask platforms is if they have pinning as a service. Because if they don't, it'll be up to you to pin that. And if you don't know to pin it, well then you're going to be garbage collected when the trash man comes around.
And when do you pin? Do you pin as part of minting, or is it something within like the metadata?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I believe it's pinned as part of minting because the metadata, you're just stating what's in the token. So at the time of minting, you want to be sure that you're pinning.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I got to go to my next platform drop and ask if they pin the NFT when it gets minted. Thank you for that.
Most people don't pin. So that's just something that you definitely, if you've learned nothing else in what I've said to you, please take this away. Pin your NFTs or make sure that the platform is pinning the NFT. If you don't pin, it will be collected as garbage at a later time. Thank you for attending this talk.
I will say you can't say it's one takeaway because that was an incredible amount of various points, but I do like that because it's like after all this work, if in the end you haven't actually done one of the fundamentals, then what was it for? But thank you so much for breaking some of the fundamentals down. And really, I think this doesn't happen just in the sports world, but in a lot of, whether it's institutional industries or where there have been people who have kind of gotten here because of the way it's been done, they're asking for, well, what's the blueprint or what's the plan, or you build the strategy, and the strategy is empowerment. That's what I'm hearing through this whole thing. The strategy is you decide what you want, and then you go make sure you're constructing the reality that you want it to achieve.
Right.
So a lot
the constraint is freedom. You're right to use an oxymoron. The constraint here is freedom and sovereignty. And so this is the container. If it doesn't fit within this container or this constraint of freedom and sovereignty, then it doesn't work for you. And that's what you have to really understand. Unless you like being owned, unless you like sharing and splitting sovereignty with other entities, brands, people, and that's okay, right? Freedom and sovereignty is not for everyone, right? Some people enjoy being a part of a bigger network by which they have a sliver or a slice, and that sliver or slice feels very abundant and makes them feel full and taken care of and supported. go for that. Me personally, the way my life is set up, the way my cells and DNA are set up, it's freedom above all. It's love and sovereignty, freedom and family above all things. And so I've arranged my container, right? Those are my constraints. And so I share that as a very personal kind of perspective. And my message or the things that I'm sharing are for those who have a similar constraint or setup for themselves.
And you can always pull back from that. But if you don't realize that that is available to you, that actually hinders the potential. And so what
That's
you're
right.
saying and this new technology allows is for that control. And yeah, there's a lot of risk sometimes if you're putting yourself in a place that is all owned by you, but with it also comes incredible opportunity. So
That's right.
That was awesome. And yeah, we look forward to continuing later today. I think, Lady Phe, you should do the honors, but 1 o'clock, Artifact and Guy Marshall. Can you give a little tease about what that one's about?
Yeah, so Guy Marshall was the person who designed the original Kobe 1 shoe. So when Kobe was 17 years old and first, touched down in New York to talk about his shoe, Guy Marshall was the one who basically received him. He was the first person that Guy Marshall and Kobe were the first to come in contact to talk about the shoe. And I believe that even before they began talking about the shoe, the story goes that they decided to get a game of basketball going, just to establish that rapport and camaraderie and kind of like brotherhood and friendship. And so the story at 1 o'clock is very special. This isn't just, some random person. This is actually someone who was there day one with Kobe as a friend, but also there day one as a shoemaker. So someone who kind of helped, launch the creative and design side of that brand relationship. And so we have him. He Guy Marshall teamed up with Artifact to recreate the Kobe ones. A portion of the proceeds from that sale goes straight to charity. The charity or the organization that it's going to is the Mamba and Mambacita Foundation.
It's wonderful. And then a fast follow to that, which is really, I feel like, has been bubbling and needs to happen, is around how the sports media landscape has changed in this new age of crypto and NFTs. There's been kind of a legacy of reporting sports based on highlights or statistics or championships or human interest stories, but increasingly it's about the athlete's investment or the athlete's return on his NFT drop or an athlete's investment in her own kind of sports apparel and fitness concept that now is going to be digital and physical. So how that's changed the sports media landscape is going to be really anchored by three people coming at it in three different ways. One from a broadcast analyst position, one from a very strong focus around girls sports and women's sports, and then one who's really anchored himself around the lifestyle and culture of sports, more around the creative side of athletics. And so that's going to be a fun 4 p.m. Clubhouse talk.
We have Raj for that, right?
Yes, we do. And awesome. Then in case you didn't see CNBC's homepage today, we have the founder of Blockade Games at 6 p.m., who is an incredible, both, I'd say, pioneer in this space, but also quite a strong media personality in her own right. And she's coming to show a little bit about Neon District, which is one of the things that she wants to show off today in an interactive session. So come follow along, play along with us as well at 6 p.m. and that's on YouTube. But all of that is on the cryptosportsweek.com schedule page. And we look forward to continuing the conversations there.
Thank you guys very much. Yes, shout out to all of our upcoming guests. And we'll see you at 11 o'clock. Thank you. Or sorry, we'll see you at 1 o'clock.